Alright, hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. So just thought I'd do another homemade guns overview. Every so often after I've built a couple guns, I'll just kind of do a video and go back and kind of recap the different designs that I did and what worked well and what did not. So I have two other homemade gun overview videos. I'll put those in the description, the link to those videos. These are the next 5 guns that I've built since the last video, and we'll just go through each one of them individually and just talk about the design and what worked well, what didn't. As a lot of you know, there were definitely some designs that did not turn out so well. So anyway, let's get into it. Alright, well, we'll go ahead and start with this one. This is the first one that I had built since the last video. I'll just kind of go in order of how I built them. So this is a over-under 22 LR, and it's a brake barrel, so you just take this little bolt and pull it back, and it allows the barrel to break. These are empty shells, by the way. I'll just go ahead and get them out of there, just so no one freaks out to thinking that the gun's loaded, if I can get them out of here. You can see the shells were empty, in case anybody was wondering about that. Anyway, so yep, you just, this is basically like a little plunger, and this little piece, it's angled, so when it comes down, it allows it to kind of fold in, and then it just latches basically right underneath of this piece, just that flat edge down there. So 2 firing pins obviously, and really the only thing that didn't really work out too well with this gun is this little, I'm gonna go ahead and cock the hammer because that's the only way this little lever works. And it just isn't very smooth. The design wasn't very good. It basically, switches which barrel you want to fire, and all it's doing is moving a little piece up and down and positioning it in front of whichever firing pin. And so when you pull the hammer, it just hits that primer. But anyway, that's the only thing. I don't have any issues with light primer strikes ever. It's just this thing's kind of finicky and doesn't work very good. So anyway, other than that, it's pretty fun. It's not very accurate, or at least it's hard to shoot accurately because it has a front sight post, but nothing really on the back to go off of. So you probably noticed in the shooting clip that I missed a couple times, and I was actually really close. So anyway, it's a fun gun to shoot, and it works pretty well. All right, so next gun that I built was this 12 gauge. And this is new, you guys haven't seen this. This is a bayonet. My uncle actually gave me this. It's just a kind of a junky blade, but anyway, he gave me that for this specific reason, to build a bayonet for this gun. So that was kind of cool. But it's just welded to a coupling 3/4 inch, and then obviously the barrel's threaded. So, so the way it works is you just take the barrel out, load a shell, and there's like a little tab right here that just goes into this groove, and then you swing it down and it locks it in place. And it is just simply kind of the same situation as that little handgun I just showed you, just a hammer, and then just a trigger that releases it. So just a quick note, this is the first gun that I built that had a safety on it, and all it is just a little piece of metal that swings in behind the trigger and doesn't allow it to pull back all the way. So when I did the original video of this, a lot of you guys were asking if if it fell, pretending that it was loaded and the hammer was decocked in the decock position, if it fell, chances are it like hit something that allowed the hammer to go forward, if it would go off. And yes, it would. So really the only way, if someone was going to keep this loaded, which I would you know, just homemade guns in general, just I wouldn't do that. But anyway, if somebody was going to, you could cock the hammer back and then put the safety on, and then it stops the trigger from being able to pull, and obviously won't allow the hammer to go off. Anyway, I still think that's sketchy as heck, so I wouldn't do it, but just some information there for you guys. So moving on, it works really good though. I did have a couple light primer strikes with that in the shooting clip, and I'm not sure why, because I've actually not ever had any issues with that up till this point. It might have been the really cold weather messing with the spring, making it not work as well. I don't really know. But anyway, moving on. Alright, so the next gun in the lineup is the Barricade. A lot of you guys probably remember this one. And so this, just to let you know, this is a spent round, and I left it in here just to show that this is obviously supposed to be a semi-auto, okay, which did not work very well at all. But I have a couple of theories of why I think it didn't. The biggest reason is because you put the rounds in here and it's just gravity fed. For whatever reason, that did not work. A lot of times the bolt does come back into chamber without a round having time to fall in place. And a couple of reasons I think what's going on is there's not enough force trying to kick these rounds out. And just a quick note, I should say that I do know the bolt is coming all the way back because the sear is catching the firing pin basically, and in order for it to do that, this bolt handle does have to pretty much be all the way back. So as far as it cycling the bolt back, I know that's not an issue. I think the biggest issue is it's not kicking the rounds out. Probably because of a combination of the weight of these other shells, you know, coming down on top of it, and there's just like a lip right along here that it would actually have to kind of like lift the round up and over that lip. So overall, I think this design would work as far as the bolt. This is just straight blowback operation, by the way. And that was the whole point of this gun, is I had a couple of attempts at just straight blowback for a 12 gauge, and this is the closest one that came to working. I've actually had it cycle like 3 times as it should, like actually in semi-auto mode, to where it worked, but then, you know, it would have some kind of a hiccup. So I'm gonna rebuild this design at some point and actually use a magazine, you know, spring fed, and I think that'll help get the rounds up fast enough for the bolt to rechamber them, and I think it'll also help with the next round coming up, help kick that spent round out. I know that seems like no duh, like why wouldn't I have done that to begin with, but I wanted to just try this method out. I thought it would work. Obviously it didn't. It would have been cool because this thing holds like 75 rounds, so that'd have been pretty sweet. But anyway, definitely had some design issues there, but like I said, in the future I'll get back at it and see if I can get it to work. So anyway, moving on. All right, so next up we got this shotgun bolt action 20 gauge, and this one just made me sad, guys. I put quite a bit of time into it, and it, as a lot of you guys probably know, it just blew up after the first couple rounds. So I just wrapped some tape because the stock even kind of splintered out on both sides a little bit. So anyway, the design flaw in this one, I believe, is mainly, so the bolt, I put a fixed firing pin, and that basically just means I just welded a little nub onto the face of the bolt, so there's no moving parts inside. And so when the round is in chamber and you close the bolt, it basically automatically creates a little bit of head spacing because that primer has not, or the firing pin has not pierced that primer yet. When it does, there's a little bit of wiggle room in that bolt, and so when the round goes off, it slammed that bolt backwards and created you know, a little bit of head spacing. And also what happened in that process is this outer tube is just 3/4 inch black pipe, so it's not real hard material, and so the part that it locked down onto kind of started flaring out and bending a little bit, and actually even compressing a little bit. Interestingly enough, the bolt, so this, and just a quick note, this bolt is the only locking lug. Okay, I was hoping to get away with that, which, you know, I'm not 100% convinced that wouldn't have worked. The bolt, the integrity of the bolt is actually just fine. The weld is no issues there. It's not bent or anything, and so that wasn't the issue. It was the material that the bolt was up against was not strong enough, and again, I should have put a floating firing pin in there that would have allowed the bolt to come right behind that round and lock tightly into the chamber. So anyway, guys, that was this one was a real bummer. I actually built this gun with hopes to deer hunt with it next deer season. I had a little 3-round magazine that went in here, and it just blew the magazine apart, split the stock. You can see that. And actually, I don't know if it's going to show up, but this entire tube is like warped now also. It's like kind of bent upwards, so totally just messed the gun up really bad. But anyway, live and learn. Know what not to do next time, right? So anyway, moving on. Okay, and that brings us to this gun, the most recent one that I've built. This is a 410 revolving shotgun. And honestly, surprisingly enough, this has been, out of probably all the guns that I've built, this has been the most, not reliable, because I've had others that have been very reliable, but with the complexity of it and moving parts, it has definitely been the most successful gun that I've built. I haven't had any issues with light primer strikes, or anything like that. It functions really well, and it's actually really fun to shoot. So basically, the way it works is this just, it's unloaded. All the cylinders are unloaded, by the way, but I pull the hammer back just so the firing pin gets out of the way there, and you just manually turn each cylinder, and it locks in place by the barrel. Kind of has a spring that the inside of these chambers are kind of, there's a chamfered edge, and then the barrel has a the opposite side of that basically, and so when you spin the cylinders, that barrel clicks in place, and that's how you know they're lined up with the cylinders are lined up with the barrel basically. That's the easiest design I could come up with the tools that I have to get that. That was the biggest issue I was facing, is making sure those were lined up, so if a round did go off, you know it's going through the barrel and not, you know, hitting the edge of the barrel or something like that. So anyway, this hole right here is how you load the cylinders. You just keep spinning them, keep putting a shell in there, and this plunger right here is how you kick the empty shells out. So yeah, it worked really good. It's fun to shoot. It surprisingly enough, it has like very little recoil with the 410 shells. I think because it weighs so much, this thing probably weighs like 10 pounds, but but anyway, it's really fun to shoot, and it has worked well. So alright, so there you have it. These are the last 5 guns that I've built. I got a couple of designs in mind going forward. Like I said, I want to get back to this semi-auto shotgun and try to perfect it and get that to work. So anyways, if you want to see any of the actual build videos of how I made these guns, you can check those out over at my Patreon page. I will also leave a link in the description to that. And again, if this is like the first video that you're watching, I'll leave a link in the description to my first 2 homemade gun overview videos, and you can kind of get a better idea of some of the other guns that I've built too. So anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. You guys have a great week and be safe. We'll see you in the next video.